What's up, everybody? Hopefully you can hear me. I'm going to wait for a few more people to come on. I always said that, I wasn't going to say I'm going to wait for people to come on. I would just go straight to the broadcast or whatever, but kind of hard talking to nobody, which is why I'm doing live broadcast in the first place. I've done a ton of tutorial videos where I'm just talking to a camera, and that's why I'm doing live now. Somebody's on from Facebook. Say hello in the comments. If you like the video, I can see who liked it and I can see who's here. I'm scared to go to Facebook right now and see who's. I'm going to go check the Facebook feed and see who that is. So I don't have necessarily a hard plan. Well, now I do, because I see a friend just popped on that I'm going to talk to. How you doing, Matt? I see you in the green room there. I can't hear you though. Hey, Tommy. Hey, I'm gonna roll the bumper, and then Matt, you and I will just we'll chat a little bit, okay? Okay, so stand by. We got 5 people. I'm going to introduce our surprise guest. Stand by. Hey, everybody. This is another live edition of the MixCoach podcast, and surprise guest, Matt Boudreau from Working Class Audio. Matt, can I?
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Yeah, I was just hoping you'd come by. Matt and I just had a call we have with some friends of ours on Friday mornings, and thought I would invite Matt on the show. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Just trying to navigate the morning.
Cool. Matt Boudreau, if you don't know him already, he runs a podcast called Working Class Audio. He's how many interviews have you done now, Matt?
I'm doing my 277th this morning.
Wow.
After I get off the call with you.
I didn't know there were 277 recording engineers in the world. Somehow you find them all, man. Some really cool stuff on your podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, Matt and I were just talking about some live stuff this morning. I told him I was just jumping in, and I'm going to take down the "We'll be live soon" thing. I got to find it. I'm still navigating this live thing, and so Matt, this is kind of how it works. I hope you are able to do some of this with your audience there. So I don't know if it's hard to tell who is watching on, because you can't see on this interface who's actually watching unless you go, or unless they like it, and then you can see who comes on. But anyway, I was going to ask you a couple of questions about your podcast. So 270 something. How do you find all these engineers? Do they find you? Do you search them out? Are they friends of yours?
Obviously friends first and foremost, that helps. A lot of referrals, a lot of people that I meet, always have suggestions. Oh, this person, they do this. And a lot of times, they're engineers in other genres that I'm just not aware of. So it's helpful to get suggestions. I have a Google sheet on my website that people can fill out and make suggestions, and I'll go there and kind of, scroll down and see a name and think, oh, I should check that out. Or check that person out. And then I'll Google them and hunt them down and then send them a request to be on the show.
Yeah. So on your podcast, now I don't mean to like put you on the spot or anything like that, because with me, the latest project I'm working on is usually my most important or the most memorable. But looking back on all your podcasts, are there any like wow moments where either you interviewed somebody that was a hero of yours, or you brought home some information that was just like amazing and you thought, I can't believe I never tried that, or whatever? I mean, anything popped to mind?
I would say the first one that pops to mind is interviewing a friend and hero, Chad Blake. He was my 200th episode,
Oh,
and
wow.
that was so much fun. It was a real treat to talk to him in that capacity. And then I would say two other interviews that really kind of stuck with me was Butch Vig and Eddie Kramer. Kind of high profile names, but there's the show is a mixture of high profile and in the trenches folks that are working.
Yeah. There's the interview with Chad Blake. I was able to pull that up real quick, but it's not a hot link. You can't click to it, but I'll go back and check those interviews out. So I've heard you talk about, Matt, a like a piece of like a book you're working on that compiles all of the like great information that you learn from interviewing all these engineers. Is that available yet, or?
Yeah, there's one. We made an attempt at a book. There was all this excitement and build up to it, but then the book came out, and the sales were okay, but it wasn't. The publisher was less than thrilled, so
Oh,
it
really?
wasn't a great success. But it's out there. It's called the Working Class Audio Journal, Volume 1,
Uh-huh.
and it's just a hand selected group of interviews of people from different audio disciplines, mastering, game sound, studio sound, as well as the manufacturing side of things, from a guest who was on the show, who creates a product or created a product. What is the name of the product? I'm spacing on it now. It'll come to me in a minute. In fact, I'm going to look it up right now as I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
to you. Langston Massengale is the name of the guest, and I'm trying to remember the name of the product. Massengale. Let's see. And he creates he I know what the product does. It's like a passive box that does tape emulation, and it's going to come to me what it's called in a minute.
I hate it when I blank like that, man. And
Oh
you'll think of
man.
it at the most unobvious time, like later when you're doing another interview.
Okay, he created a product called Zulu. Handsomeaudio.com is his website, and he created this product that he's super passionate about. Great guy, super smart. But anyways, it's a book filled with just four guests. Andrew Sheps is kind of like the headliner of the book.
Mm-hmm.
For those in audio that know him, he's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Well, cool. I was going to ask you a couple of questions about, I know that you are a tester for UA, Universal Audio, and I know Universal Audio just came out with a new product yesterday and called, wait a minute, now I'm blanking.
Luna.
Luna, that's right. I'm sitting
Yeah.
here looking at the word right here, Luna. So tell me a little bit about Luna. I've been a Universal Audio fan for a while. I've used their plugins and think they're amazing. So this is kind of the next iteration of what Universal Audio does. Tell me about it a little bit.
It's a great offering from Universal Audio. I've been working on it only for, I'm going to say, several months, and I came in at the tail end, and my role was very minor compared to a lot of people. There's a lot of real rock stars at Universal Audio who've put in years into the development of this product, and it's a DAW, and it integrates really well with the Apollo interfaces for zero latency recording. You don't even have to leave the DAW environment, and it's free to those who have Thunderbolt Apollo interfaces.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some add-on features that you can add. You can, in spite of it being free, there's all these extra bits that you can pay for and add more capability, more virtual instruments, et cetera, et cetera. It's a great platform, and I've done some mixing in it, and I really enjoy it. I love how it sounds. It's got some Neve summing emulation in it and some tape emulation in it. And when you combine that in that environment, there's just there's something sonically about it. Excuse me, my throat's getting all scratchy here, and I'm all out of liquid refreshments in the form of coffee or water. But it's a great offering from them, and it is in the version 1.0 stage. I know that I've had some questions like, well, can it do this, or why can't it do this? And my answer is be patient. It's in its infancy, and even in its infancy, it's super powerful, and it will become more powerful as time goes along.
Well, I don't want to shower you with questions here, but just a couple of like self-serving questions here. I have an Apollo, so you're saying I need at least the Thunderbolt. Mine's the old Firewire, so it won't work with that, right?
You have a silver Apollo?
I do.
Okay, so that silver Apollo has the ability to take in a card that they make, a Thunderbolt card.
Mm-hmm.
So you could get a Thunderbolt card and attach it to your Mac.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're in these early stages, and I can't speak of timelines or anything of that. I'd be like out of my wheelhouse, out of my element. But I can tell you that you do need at least Mojave on a Mac. It's not running on PC at the moment, and you need Thunderbolt. So if you buy the Thunderbolt card for that Apollo, you're in, and
okay,
it's free.
Okay, so another couple of questions. You may or may not know this stuff because I need it for a strange purpose here. What is there a track limitation on it? How many tracks?
No, I don't think there is a track limitation.
Okay, all right. So here's the kicker, I think. Okay, so I do broadcast audio from my Pro Tools rig. Mm-hmm. Basically, with Pro Tools, it's hard to. It takes a lot of money to throw at it to get to the 64 channels up, 128 channels. And I have not been able to span that gap yet. So I'm using a program called Reaper, which I'm sure a lot of people are. There's a lot of programs that will allow you to have multiple tracks. So Luna's good for this. The next question is is it software that's serving their hardware, or is there a way that I can input, say, stuff off of a network like Dante Network? Can I pull in audio inputs to the Luna from a network instead of having to go through the card?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. That is something I haven't tried, something I haven't tested, and nor something I've even entertained at this moment. There's much better informed people at UA, I think, who could answer that.
Yeah, I figured, it being in such an early stage, but it may be worth trying out because I'm still using the Firewire interface. If I just picked up at the Thunderbolt 2 or 3 card for my, I may be able to test it. It would be really nice if they could do that because all I need is a very simple interface because I have volunteers, 100% volunteers running a whole production at our church. So having something as complicated and versatile as Reaper is problematic sometimes because sometimes possibilities just leads to complication. And it would be really nice to have something like Luna just to put it in record and it just sounds good and it's stable. So maybe I'll look into that. Maybe you can hook me up with a contact or something that I can call and ask about that, or maybe it's documented. I don't know.
Absolutely. I can definitely get the question answered.
Okay. Awesome, man. I know you've got another couple of interviews coming up and I don't want to abuse your time or anything like that. So whenever you need to go, just let me know.
Okay. I'm good for about another 15 minutes and then I got to go and eat breakfast before the interview starts.
All right, cool. So do you do your interviews from right there?
I do. Yeah. The majority of the interviews are done remotely, and whenever possible, obviously not at this point in time, I try to go out and do stuff in person at coffee shops. But I would say probably 90% of the interviews are done right here.
Yeah. Are you thinking about maybe videoing some of your interviews in the future? Or?
I've really played around with video over the years, and it's really hard. It's just another thing to think about And the show is edited a bit because, we edit out filler words and points in time where I'm trying to get my thoughts together with the guest just to make a cohesive and tight show.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you bring the video element in, that really challenges that. You
Yeah.
have to be you have to be a little more prepared. So I guess,
Yeah.
the lazy part of me says, video, what a pain.
Well, laziness is the mother of invention, right? So that's why we go live. So you don't have to think about the editing and stuff. You just do it.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. So are you, I know you do a lot of testing for UA. Do you use all of their plugins? I mean, okay, so if that's the case, then what are like 3 plugins that UA offers that are game changers for you?
Well, game changing is a little dramatic, but I would say that the plugins that I really find useful are the 176, the compressor, which preceded the 1176. Also, the Teletronics LA2, not the LA2A, but the LA2. I've been finding, at least in the podcast, that's a really useful tool. That
Mhm.
sonically, there's subtle differences between the LA2A silver gray and the original LA2, which uh, preceded those others. Those 2 are really great. Um, it just depends on what I'm doing. I find that in the podcast, those are put into use, but I don't really use too many UA plugins in the podcast. I find that when I'm using UA plugins is when I'm mixing. When I'm mixing music for bands, that's
Mhm.
when I go to town,
Mhm.
where, there's just so many useful plugins in there. And quite honestly, there's so many. There's probably I can't even count the number that I don't use because there's ones where I'll go through the list and think, "Oh, I haven't used that in like 2 years. I'm gonna use that today." So it's nice to have all those plugins,
Yeah.
but I don't use every one of them every day.
Yeah, I have the LA2, and I have the I didn't even realize there were that many LA2 models. Do you know the difference between them, except for their hierarchy as far as
God,
time when they were created?
yeah, boy, I started to research this a bit, and I can't, and I have it all written down actually because I was just kind of going down a rabbit hole. I think there was the guy that created the LA2. Let me just look that up really. Let me look at. I have it written down, I think in Grammarly somewhere here. See, here I am live on your show looking stuff up. That
Hey,
is just
I
how
did.
uncool is that?
No, I just did that. I just looked up that interview, right?
Or no, actually, here it's not in Grammarly. It's in Evernote for
So I
me.
keep everything.
All these different tools I use. Do you use any of those, Evernote or Grammarly?
I have probably 8,000 notes in Evernote. It's where everything goes. And then I have trouble finding stuff in Evernote sometimes. They've got so many notes.
Yeah, I started to work on a potential audio course that I kind of abandoned on compression,
Mhm.
and here I am trying to look at my notes for that live on your show.
Sorry,
And
I put you on the spot. I'm
no,
not.
and I'm gonna answer your question because I think I wrote the answers down to this.
Mhm. Well, while you're looking it up, I do have the LA2, and I also have the DBX 160, which is one of my favorites. I use it for drum compression, like the parallel drum compression. If UA were to just put a mix knob on it, I'd probably just put it across the drum bus because I use it for everything. It's just a great compressor. Um,
Um, okay, so the LA2A. Okay, so there was a company called Babcock Electronics in Costa Mesa, California,
mhm.
around 1965, and that's where the LA2A started, but it started, I believe, there was an LA1, and then there was then the LA2, and then that's when I think it eventually Bill Putnam got involved with URI, or some people say UREI, but I say URI, and took over. But they're all just variations on this particular T4 cell that, and now we're really getting into the weeds, aren't we? Anyhow, it's I'm certainly not the expert, as you can tell, but it's I like the LA2. I love how it sounds. I love how it sounds on people's voices and how it reacts.
Do you hit it pretty hard? Because I've seen LA2A is just the needle just laying over it, and it just still sounds good. Do you just touch it, or do you like slam it?
I don't look at the meter. I just I kind of get a hold of the gain reduction and turn it and close my eyes until it starts to sound like a problem.
and then you back up, or no?
Yeah, and then I'll back up just a little bit. But
well, if it sounded like a problem and you kept going, that'd be another podcast episode probably. I didn't realize that was in Costa Mesa. That's just like the next city over from me.
That's where it started.
Yeah, that's cool. Let's see. I was going to ask you something else, but in like manner, I am. I was going to mention a couple of the UA things that I used. Have you used the Ocean Way?
In fact, I was using that yesterday on a big band record I'm mixing.
Oh yeah,
where I recorded a 20-piece big band in a middle school band room, and then we had a singer overdub a vocal part and in New York and send it to us, and he did it in like his bedroom, and so we had to get that vocal to sit in the world of this middle school band room. This middle school band room, by the way, sounded amazing. It sounds like an old school big band record, but then we had this dry vocal, and so we used the Ocean Way plugin it's set as a doing an aux send to it and using it as a reverb with a little bit of pre-delay, and that was the solution to help get this vocal to sit and give you the illusion that it was recorded at the same time.
Wow, that's cool. Now, I used that plugin. I think I just had the trial of it, and I just used it for this purpose. But I would totally get it again for this. But I was recording drums in my studio in Nashville, and it was just a basement, kind of a room designed for vocals, kind of multiple vocals actually. So it wasn't live at all. Very, very dry room, and so that makes it kind of hard to get a drum room sound. But I put a mic in front of the drums, and then I ran that completely through the Ocean Way and put it in a room in Ocean Way, and that was one of the best room sounds I've heard. It was better than a room sound, because room sounds are, you always have to worry about cymbals, how much you compress it, how much the cymbals are going to, what the trade-off between the bigness of the toms and kick and the snare versus the washiness of the cymbals. I was able to move the drum, that mic down under the kick and snare, and run it through that room, and problem solved. It was amazing. And if I ever have to record drums in a small room again, I'm definitely going to grab that Ocean Way plug-in. I forget which room I put it in, but every room I pulled up sounded great.
What's funny for me is when I was about 20 or 21, and I'm 50 now, so this is going back a little ways. I was in a band that recorded at Ocean Way, and we recorded, I think I want to say it was in Studio B at Ocean Way at the time. And so when I hear drum sounds through that emulation, it just makes me think of that time period and being in that room, and whether or not it sounds exactly like it was when I was there and how I remember it, I don't know, but I hear it, and it's like the sonic memories that you have. You hear a sound and it takes you back. That takes me back for a number of reasons.
Yeah. Does it sound like it? I mean, it obviously sounds enough like it that trigger a memory.
I think so. When I listened
So, I mean,
to the record
sorry.
that it was recorded at, or where when I listen, let me back up. When I listened to the record that was recorded at Ocean Way by my band, and I listened to those drum sounds or those tones, and I listened to some things I've tried running through that plugin in studio on the Studio B side, it's definitely on par with that.
Yeah, that's cool. I have never recorded at Ocean Way. I would love to. I had the opportunity. I was mixing a record several years ago, and it was kind of like a big band record, like what you're doing. I was mixing for a studio, an engineer, a producer in Nashville, and he said, "Hey, I want to take this mix to California. I just want to go to California. So pick us a studio in California, and let's finish the mix there." I'd already mixed everything in Pro Tools, and I think I may have called Ocean Way. I think I called another couple of SSL rooms, and then he mentioned going to Capitol. So I called Capitol. They called me right back. We booked a room, and I was able to mix at Capitol. But there's another couple of SSL rooms in LA, and the name's leaving me right now. But anyway, we ended up at Capitol, met Steve Genewick, and we worked together on that project, which is kind of funny because he was assisting me, and when I found out that it was Steve Genewick assisting me, I'm like, why? Why are you assisting me, man?
Yeah.
I learned from that guy.
Steve is the nicest guy. He's really good at what he does. And I mentioned the big band recording that I was doing. Before I did it, I was texting with Steve, and I said, "Hey, can I get you on a call for a minute? I want to run this setup by you." And he lives in LA, and at the time he texted me back and he said, "Well, actually, I'm in Berkeley right now, moving my daughter into the dorms." And so we agreed we would meet up for coffee in person. And so it was just serendipitous that he was up here in Northern California, and I was able to get him for coffee and sit down and go, "Okay, here's the mic list, here's the input list, here's the setup. What do you think?" And he just looked at it and was like, "Oh, okay, you need to do this. Oh, no, don't do that. Do this instead." And he really, of all people to talk to about that, Steve and Al Schmidt would be the people to talk to about making a big band recording in the 21st century.
Absolutely. So is this big band recording, it's not middle school players, is it?
No. It's pro adult players. It just it's called the Kyle Lethade Dance Party, and it's this guy. I think Kyle's probably about in his 30s. It could be a convoluted story. I'll try to simplify it. Basically, Kyle's dad, Bob Lethade, is a very well-known band director in Northern California. He's very well loved. He's super passionate about music and teaching kids, and his dad and I get along really well. And his dad is my youngest son's band director. So, we have a lot of interaction. I met his son, Kyle, and Bob came to me and said, "Hey, Kyle's got this big band record he wants to do. I told him to talk to you about it." We went to coffee a few times. Kyle said, "Here's what I'm going for. Here's where I've been with my previous record." And I said, "As far as recording a big band record in the Bay Area on a, a decent budget, I don't know of a room that would be better than this band room that we're in right now where your dad teaches." So we figured it out and we made it happen. And so, he flew in all these hotshot players to do this. So when I saw the seriousness behind what he was doing, I said, "Okay, I need to reach out to Steve and get some good advice here." And Steve definitely gave me great advice, because as we're mixing this, I mean, there's probably like 3 or 4 plugins on the whole thing. And most of everything we're doing has to do with just, "Oh, why don't we bring the trumpets up here? Oh, the trombones are a little loud. Let's bring them back here." Super, super easy to mix, and it just sounds good naturally without a lot of effort.
Mm-hmm. So, tell me, what did you record it on? You recorded on your laptop? Did you
Good,
walk me through that
good,
process?
yeah, good question. This this was recorded on a Sound Devices location recorder. They had just released a new recorder called the Scorpio, and Sound Devices is a sponsor of my podcast. And so, I was abreast of what they were up to as far as products. And I saw this thing, watched the video, and I thought, I know how much I like my Sound Devices Mix Pre 6 that I'm actually talking to you on right now. And I thought, that thing works great. So I wonder if this Scorpio device would be a good thing to record this big band recording on, and not have to worry about a DAW and the stresses of Pro Tools crashing in the middle of whatever. So I reached out to him and I said, here's what I want to do. And they said, we totally want to support you in that. So they FedExed me a Scorpio, which is this like $10,000 location recording device. And so we recorded it straight to that. And when you record on that, it records to three forms of media, or actually two forms of media at once. It records to an internal SSD and two SD cards. So the minute you hit record, you're recording to three different formats, or three different devices, so that if one fails, you have two backups. So the
No.
redundancy is incredible. And after we would, wrap up a song, I would check in with Kyle and say, okay, what's the next song? And he would tell me the name of the next song. And I'd say, okay, give us 5 minutes to transfer. And we had the Sound Devices recorder attached to a Mac with Pro Tools on it. And my assistant would transfer it over, pull all the files into a Pro Tools session, label it, get it ready, so that by lunchtime, everybody'd come in, eat their sandwiches, and sit around, and we would all listen in an adjacent room, and she and I could play the takes back to them, and we could take notes, and it was a different way of working, but it really worked out great. Sounds great. We did it at 2496 through the Sound Devices onto its internal SSD, transfer over, and then ultimately mix in Pro Tools.
Wow. I'm looking at it now. That's quite a, what you said, it's 16 channels or 32 channels?
Well, actually, you can plug in up to 16 mics on it through a combination of XLRs, and I think they're called TA3 connectors, which are essentially a mini XLR.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that. We just plugged directly in. You can actually attach it to a Dante network,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you can get another 32 in.
Yeah. Another
It's
32 in?
I think, I'm not
Wow.
entirely sure. I know that
Okay.
it can get a hell of a lot of inputs in at
Wow.
once. It's pretty mind-blowing.
Wow. So did you get to keep it or do you have to send it back?
Oh, no, I had to send it back.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they weren't about
Well,
to hand over a $10,000 recorder.
well,
But it was great to
depends on how good the mix is, right?
right, right, then maybe they'll send it back.
Yeah.
No, it was a fun way to work, and an interesting way to work, and, I would do it again. It's a great device, and the whole system, the whole thing that we had worked out pretty great.
Yeah. So, okay, well, I know you need to run, but drums, how did you treat the drums? Was it like minimal sort of thing because you had limited inputs?
Yeah, super minimal. What did we do? We did kick and two overheads, I believe.
Yeah.
Um, KM84s, XY, right over the drummer's head, actually, and then
Mm-hmm.
a kick mic on a kick drum that had the front head on it, very very little, if any, muffling, and then the key to all of it, though, for the most part, everything was pretty minimally mic'd. All the horn sections had stereo pairs in front of them to keep it pretty basic. But we had a couple AEA A440s on the room. So a lot of the tonality is a combination of, the
Mm-hmm.
close-up stereo mics, but a lot of room was captured through those AEA ribbons. And
So,
that kind of just glues the whole thing together.
yeah. Yeah. So what's one tweak that Steve got you to make that you really liked?
Well, Kyle was really interested in the sound of old school big band records, you know, just from a certain time period when technology was of a certain way in terms of, miking and tape and everybody in the same room, very little isolation on a singer, for example. Um, so we discussed doing super duper minimal miking. And when I ran that by Steve, Steve said, people will say that, but then they'll ask you why can't they hear this one element? And he said, better to over mic it and have the ability to remove than under mic it and be stuck.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you can always turn mics off and turn tracks off, but you can't add them after the fact
Mm-hmm.
in that environment. So he just said, do stereo pairs in front of every section and, then mic your piano, your bass, guitar, and your drums as you would, and you'll be covered.
Yeah.
And
So
he was right.
Yeah. So your stereo pairs in front of, say, trombones, were they all AEA mics or?
No, it was a mixture. I'll tell you these, and then I see the time is getting close to 9. I'll have to jump, but the stereo pair in front of the trombones was Audio-Technica AT 4047s.
Mm-hmm.
We had an AEA stereo ribbon on the trumpets. That's I'm spacing on it. I want to say the R88. I think that's right. And then the saxophones, we use some JZ microphones, the vintage 67s.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually this is a KU5A AEA ribbon mic. We use that on the guitar. Neumann KM184s on the overheads. And then I think I want to say a Beta 52 on the kick drum. I may be wrong about that. And then the upright bass. What did we use on the upright bass? I think we used the Shure SM7 on the upright bass on pointed right at the like right around the bridge, between the bridge and the F hole.
Right.
And then on the piano, I think those were JZ mics. They were something 11. I'm spacing on the model number, but it was JZ mics on there. And then eventually we put a packing blanket over the piano. It was a grand piano.
Mm-hmm.
I think that covers everything. And then we would have like a KU5A for soloists to come up to and do their solos.
That's cool.
And then the AEA A440s on the room.
Right. So the stereo pairs in front of, say, trombones and trumpets and stuff, were they XY or Bloomline or what?
Yeah. Everything was the trombones were XY, saxophones were XY, and those were cardioid condenser mics. The AEA ribbon mic on the trumpets, because it's figure of 8 for it. I guess technically that would be a Bloomline in there on that one. So and then everything bled into everything else. A little bit of drums in the piano, a little bit of drums on the bass,
which makes it sound nice and big. I think if everything sounds good going down and the leakage doesn't sound bad, people worry about leakage too much.
And the upright bass player had a bass amp, and that bass amp, of course, bled into the room, which gives this kind of blooming low end to it. And then if we wanted a little more articulation, we just moved up, the SM7 that was on that was close up.
Yeah.
Hey man, I'm sorry, but I got to jump. I got to go eat and then do another call.
I've enjoyed talking to you, Matt. I'll see you soon. Okay.
I'll talk to you later. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming, man. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
So can't top that, Matt. Cool guy. And I would love to get my hands on that big band record and listen to it. So, okay, so I will probably go live again in the morning and do what I plan to do today, which I was going to talk a little bit about phase. So, give me ring that bell at the top. Subscribe to the podcast or to the Facebook page, the YouTube channel, and you'll be notified when we go live again and when we do a real Q&A. and not just me questioning Matt and everything, you'll be notified. Okay. So for now, I will call that a wrap, and I will talk to you guys soon. Okay.